This anime follows the life of a soldier who doesn't waste time on useless things in his life. Whenever he has a free day to enjoy, he goes to his favorite place, which in this case is the best place in Japan for a smelly otaku nerd to go. Here in Brazil, the place most similar to this place he loves to go would be Praça da Liberdade in Sao Paulo. And like a good otaku, we see our middle-aged hero using an anime cover on his cell phone. And whenever he closes his eyes, he imagines what his life would be like if he lived in a fantasy world. He believes he would be a great hero wearing a stylish outfit and defeating creatures, but his dream ends with monsters devouring his rear end without mercy, which leads him to wake up irritated inside the train. After that, while walking through a mall, he feels his body tired, but a concert of a famous girl he loves will happen soon, so he decides to research more about it. However, his distraction leads him to run into a wall. He falls to the ground and everyone watches him as he groans in pain. The blow was so strong that he began to see elves, wizards, and goth girls. He finally wakes up and a man who came to help him realizes that he is also a big fan of anime for over 30s. Very close by, a door to another world opens and several people gather around, as curious people usually do. Soon, dragons, men on horses and monsters come out of this door ready to conquer our world. They begin their attack and the first ones to die are the curious. When he sees this happening, our hero doesn't understand anything. He complains that Japan has already been gifted with 2 atomic bombs in its chest and now has to deal with an invasion from another world. Even without believing what is happening, he quickly decides to act. Because if this invasion continues, the release of manga for over 30s will be cancelled and he won't be able to sleep in peace. Along the way, he helps a beautiful single mother who was lying on the floor. And soon after, he saves a useless policeman from being caught by a warrior wearing armor. He mobilizes the enemy soldier and quickly finishes him off with a sword. The police officer and the single mothers around him are shocked that he would kill someone without even hesitating. But our hero did only what was necessary. A few minutes pass and now he is trying to order the police to evacuate the people to the Imperial Palace. Because if they continue to block the passage of people, the enemies will arrive and everyone will end up dying because of them. They ask who this man who looks like an extra is, but he doesn't answer and just asks the police to evacuate the people quickly. All this while the enemies from the other world were advancing, killing everyone they found. The policeman, after being pressured, called his superior and received permission to evacuate the people to the Imperial Palace. Meanwhile, one of the leaders of the army from the other world was talking to a friend. He expresses his happiness at seeing humans in this world. However, he feels that the structures of our world are far superior to theirs, and that gives him a certain chill in the stomach. At the same time as he says this, the Japanese forces begin to arrive to stop the enemies from the other world. The dragons are easily shot down by military helicopters. The armored soldiers are annihilated by firearms. The monsters don't even realize what killed them, and not even the thickest shields are capable of withstanding the weaponry of our world. Have you always wanted to draw your favorite anime characters but think you don't have the talent? Here on our channel we have the perfect solution for you. We formed an exclusive partnership to teach you all how to draw anime quickly and easily. Even if you think you don't have the talent for it, you will learn from Noah Williams, one of the greatest experts in the world of anime. Drawing anime has never been so simple, and it doesn't matter if you are a beginner or already have some experience. From the first class you will see the results. You will learn very quickly. The link will be in the video description and only you can access and learn today. The enemy army is completely destroyed, and our hero, like my friend Joao Faria, decides to help a little girl who got lost from her parents. The girl accepts his help and after that, several days pass, and we see the man named Yuji receiving a decoration for having saved the lives of many people in that disaster. Yuji, in fact, is a decorated lieutenant who has helped the country a lot in several battles. Unfortunately for Yuji, the launches and promotions he intended to buy were cancelled, and thinking about it makes him cry in front of everyone. While he is promoted to second lieutenant, he becomes famous, appearing on television several times thanks to his noble deeds. He even receives the nickname Hero of Ginza. Now, in his military training, a comrade comments on his fame, saying that women must not stop wanting to be with him. But for Yuji, his promotion and fame were unnecessary because his time off is completely over, and he no longer has time to do what is most important in his life, which is to enjoy his hobbies, which are adult manga. At that moment, his friend reveals that he was also at the site of the invasion. Unlike Yuji, he managed to buy the new releases and unfortunately was afraid of the monsters and was unable to do anything. Upon hearing this, Yuji quickly cheers up and hugs the man, saying that he will visit his house to see everything he managed to buy. However, his overreaction only makes Kurata feel violated, and he thinks that Yuji is gay. At the end of that day, Yuji receives a new uniform, and unfortunately, due to the low military budget, it will still take a few days for everyone to receive their clothes. But Yuji received his early, as he has become a sort of poster boy for the military. While this was happening, the Japanese government was discussing what to do with the portal to the other world, and a large part of the politicians wanted the portal to be destroyed. However, most were saying that the invaders are terrorists, and that is why they should invade their world to better understand their culture and find the person responsible for the invasion and judge him. They believe that closing the portal could cause the portal to reappear somewhere else, and so, invading their world seems to be the best option. Meanwhile, Yuji was wondering if he would have time off to enjoy the winter season. On television, we see the American president offering to help Japan by providing money, weapons, and military service. All this in exchange for taking all the oil from the other world. 3 months pass and the government is finally ready to send its men to the other world. In front of everyone, the general says that several scouts have gone through this door, but they haven't gotten any information, and so he doesn't know what awaits them in the special region. Therefore, everyone must be ready to fight as soon as they go through the door to the other world. At that moment, Yuji realizes that the little girl he helped has lost her father, so he grits his teeth and prepares to advance. He and the other soldiers get into giant war cannons and go through the portal, while the supply truck trucks advance right behind them. Halfway through, a friend of Yuji's asks him if they will see any girls with cat ears in the other world, and Yuji believes that it is quite likely that girls like that exist in the other world. Upon arriving in the other world, they encounter a large enemy army and quickly prepare to fight under the setting sun. Meanwhile, in this fantasy world, a conference with Emperor Malt is taking place. Everyone is discussing the recent losses they have suffered while trying to invade that other world, and because of this recent defeat, they have lost their military advantage. Everyone believes that a revolt could happen, but the Emperor says that it is in these difficult times that all the people must unite to face the danger and protect their Emperor. The Emperor does not hold anyone responsible for the recent losses, and says that everyone must unite to face the enemies who have risen against them. However, if someone wants to take responsibility and be the one to blame for the great losses they have suffered, he is willing to sacrifice that person. After hearing this, everyone is forced to agree with the Emperor, until out of nowhere, an elderly man asks what they should do, now that their army has been defeated in 2 days, and the enemies have conquered the portal using magic they have never seen before. At that moment, a bald man in armor stands up and says that they should fight to the death, and everyone stands up saying the same. The Emperor then calms them down, and says that he will do everything possible for them to win this battle. He says that his current plan is to contact neighboring countries, asking for help in dealing with these pirates who have invaded their world. Time passes and a gigantic army is gathered. However, they find it strange that so many people have been gathered to face such a small number of enemies. The leaders of the fantasy world hold a meeting and come to the conclusion that they must attack the invaders the next day. After deciding this, all the leaders fight to go to the front line in search of Chlor. After all, there will be 300,000 very well-armed soldiers against only 10,000 outsiders who understand nothing about this world. Of all of them, only an old and experienced general realizes that something strange is happening. So, the next day, 100,000 soldiers advance under the orders of the one who managed to lead the first attack. They notice that the Imperial army has not shown up to accompany them in this battle, but it will still be 100,000 against 10,000. However, the ground beneath their feet begins to explode because they ignored the warnings, saying that the land in front was full of land mines. And in the first offensive alone, 10,000 soldiers from the fantasy world died in combat. In the second offensive, 40,000 soldiers died, and everyone thinks that it is time to flee because they have not managed to eliminate even a single enemy that invaded their world. However, one of the army leaders who is still alive says that they can no longer retreat, so they must attempt a night attack. However, the military forces use flares to illuminate the battlefield, and Durant, seeing this, orders everyone to advance towards the enemy. But his horse stops when passing through a simple barbed wire fence. The soldiers raise their iron shields to protect themselves, but the human army is using high-caliber weapons, and their shields are easily pierced. Durant then gets up and at least tries to use an arrow against his enemies, but it does not help at all, and he starts laughing like a madman, until out of nowhere, he and all his soldiers are blown up. The next day, after the end of the war, Yuji walks through the battlefield with his friend, and after looking around, they come to the conclusion that more than 120,000 enemy died in that war, and the Japanese defense force did not suffer any casualties. Meanwhile, the Emperor was at peace, sitting on his throne, because thanks to this war, he managed to make the leaders of all the neighboring countries no longer a threat to the empire. The Emperor then orders that all the houses around Alnos be burned, and says that they must poison the soil and water of those lands, as this will make their enemies weaker. Out of nowhere, the Emperor's daughter, Pinia, asks her father what he intends to do to deal with these enemies. The bald man reveals the Emperor's plans to destroy the food, water, and poison the soil in that area. However, Pinia doesn't think this is a good idea, since there are still people living in that region. The Emperor then sends his daughter and her knights to investigate the enemy army, but he asks her to only go if she believes she can actually do it. Meanwhile, in our world, all the local rulers were thinking about sending reinforcements to help Japan deal with this portal. However, they think that the Japanese army will fail, and so they will be forced to ask for their help, and because of that, no reinforcements will be sent. Now we see Yuji being ordered to search for people and try to at least create some friendly relations or something. Unfortunately for Yuji, he becomes the commander of the 3rd Reconnaissance Unit, which will make him in charge of an entire platoon. He looks all dejected in front of his subordinates, which leaves a female member not understanding how this zombie-looking man became their leader. Without further ado, all the reconnaissance units head to the nearby villages, trying to make friends with the people. At first, most of them are scared, but they slowly manage to gain the trust of the people. After a few days, we see Yuji and his friend discouraged, as they only found ordinary people and no succubi or monster girls. Yuji, with a smile on his face, says that he really wants to see a magical girl, as he loves animes with cute little girls who use magic. They start singing the opening of a magical girl anime, which makes the woman in the 2nd reconnaissance truck almost vomit in disgust. Moving on, they come across a forest on fire, looking like a scene from a giant monster movie. They all grab binoculars and see that a red dragon is responsible for this. They then realize that the village ahead has been completely burned, and they head there in search of survivors. They don't find anyone, and Yuji decides to retreat, as dragons are very difficult to take down without the right weaponry, and they currently don't have what it takes to deal with the dragon if it attacks. Yuji then throws a bucket into a well of water, and after hearing a strange sound, he looks into the well and realizes that there was an elf inside. He jumps into the well and saves the beautiful elf as if his life depended on it. The girls from the reconnaissance group perform first aid on the elf, and while they do so, Yuji's friend is happy that beautiful elves like those exist in this world. Yuji doesn't have a fetish for elves, so he just asks his friend if that girl is his type. But before his friend can answer, Yuji receives information that the elf is getting better. He then acts like a human being, and instead of abandoning the elf in his destroyed village, he decides to take care of her until she is better. However, his subordinate asks if he or his little friend with the otaku guy don't have ulterior motives towards that poor elf. After hearing this, the two are completely completely embarrassed because they have been discovered. So they decide to return to the village closest to their camp and report everything that happened to the village elder. Yuji has already learned a bit of the local language, so he passes on the information to the elder and asks the old man to take care of the elf. However, the old man says that it won't be possible as everyone will have to evacuate this village as the dragon could destroy them at any moment. Everyone in the village starts putting their things on carts to evacuate as quickly as possible. After all, once the dragon burns a village, it usually destroys other villages right after. Meanwhile, an old wizard and his apprentice were also evacuating. His apprentice asks the old man to take it easy as he could die of old age at any moment, but the old man jokes that she looks like an ironing board and that if she were like her sister in Muo's body, he would accept any order she gave him. Upon hearing this, the wizard attacks with magic and the old man says he was just joking. They then try to leave with their little disabled horse, but their cart is too heavy. So, even though magic is something sacred, the wizard named Lele uses her magic, making the cart lighter. But on the way, a broken cart stops the two. Lele and her master notice men speaking in a strange language. They are also helping people evacuate. Lele, being a good curious person, decides to check what is happening. She then finds an injured grotto on the way, and the woman, named Mari, who is also a doctor, begins to check on the girl's health. Out of nowhere, a horse goes out of control, and it was going to trample Lele and Mari. However, he is quickly shot down. Lele realizes that she was saved by these strangers. After that, Yuji tells his friend that unfortunately they will have to take care of these people. Since they arrived in this world, the lords of the nearby regions have fled with their tails between their legs. During the night, several bandits were talking about the people of Koda village who are evacuating in fear of the dragon. The leader of the bandits then comes to the conclusion that they should take advantage of this opportunity. But as he opens an evil smile on his face, his head is cut off by a little goth girl. She begins to cut down all the bandits while thanking them for being evil. She introduces herself as Rory Mercury, the apostle of the dark god Emloy. The bandits recognize her as the famous Shinigami Rory and try to escape, but she begins to spend the entire studio budget to eliminate bandit by bandit until they are all definitely dead. The next day, our soldiers continue helping the people evacuate their villages, and Yuji worries that these people have nowhere to go. He believes that these people will flee until they believe they are far enough away from the flames of that dragon. Along the way, several wagons break down, and the only thing the refugees can do is take the most important things and abandon the rest along the way. Yuji also orders the abandoned belongings to be burned, and to make matters worse, he cannot call for reinforcements. This could end up making the enemies watching them from a distance think that they are weaker than before and attack them with an even larger army, which will only lead them to spend more money to kill more people. So, the best thing to do is to advance cautiously and avoid unnecessary efforts. Mari understands her superior's point of view, and Yuji ends by saying that the most they can do is to give these people a little help. Out of nowhere, someone appears in front of them, surrounded by crows. Yuji looks through binoculars and is shocked to see a gothic girl. His friend also despairs and verifies this information. The children run to Hori, calling her an oracle. She asks what happened and the children tell the whole truth, saying that they fled because of the dragon and that those men in green helped them. Hori then approaches Yuji and starts asking him about their horse, and he compliments it a lot, saying that it's more comfortable than his entire house. Hori acts like a street corner girl, licking her lips and saying that she wants to ride that cart. Yuji tries to make friendly conversation, but Hori just watches as if she's going to suck his soul out. A while later, we see her sitting on his lap. Yuji asks her not to sit on him, and his friend gets jealous and says that it's not fair. From afar, the villagers see the vehicle moving strangely, while Yuji yells at Hori not to touch her pistol. A while later, as they continue on, Yuji realizes that the weather is too hot, so he decides to look up at the sky, but he ends up seeing a small dragon approaching them. However, this dragon is devoured by the gigantic red dragon. He orders everyone to prepare to be attacked, but unfortunately there was nothing he could do, and many people were burned alive. But the dragon doesn't seem to want any humans alive, so the soldiers decide to face the dragon and start shooting at it. However, this dragon has a tough skin that resists the projectiles. To make matters worse, if they get caught in the dragon's flames, they will all die. Out of nowhere, the elf wakes up, and for some reason she is naked, probably to increase the views of my video. She doesn't care about the fact that she is naked and starts pointing at her eye while saying that the dragon's weak point is in the eye. Somehow, Yuji manages to understand this, so he asks everyone to shoot the dragon's eye. They do so, and the dragon begins to take steps back. A soldier takes out a bazooka to shoot the dragon, and before firing, he was going to do the safety procedures, but everyone yells at him to shoot quickly. The man does so, but he slightly misses his target due to the movement of the vehicle. However, Rory quickly climbs on top of the vehicle and uses a magic from his staff, which ends up making the dragon go back into the direction of the grenade fired by the bazooka. The dragon is struck and screams in pain. He did not receive any fatal injuries, but apparently an arm was removed. At the end of that day, the people who died in that attack are buried, and Yuji once again takes care of a child who lost his family. Now they can no longer move on, so Yuji asks what the elder intends to do with those who lost their family, and the elderly who cannot move on their own. The elder says that those who cannot move on will be abandoned. Amari then asks Yuji what he intends to do with these people. He then smiles and says that he will take everyone with him, and for the first time Amari is happy with his decision, which makes Yuji even wonder. After that, while the elf sleeps, we discover that she lived in a village full of elves. The place was beautiful and full of trees, but the dragon attacked them and only she survived because her father threw her into the well. She wakes up from her nightmare, this time wearing clothes. Then everyone says that she woke up at a great time because they are almost there. At that moment we see the large military base that the Japanese built around the portal. Meanwhile, the emperor's daughter Knight was in a bar talking to her companions about the red elder dragon. She saw rumors that the men in green clothes managed to make it retreat, but her friends believe that this is nothing more than lies. At that moment, a woman who was attacked by the the dragon and survived appears before them. She says that the men in green did indeed defeat the dragon, but her memory is weak and she needs some coins to better remember the details. The pine tree then goes out and the woman says that the men in green use very beautiful iron weapons, ride comfortable iron wagons, and that they fought the red dragon, making it retreat. Meanwhile, Yogi finally arrives with the refugees, who are all shocked by the structure where the men in green live. However, not everything is happy, as Yogi's superior harshly criticizes him for having brought these homeless people to their base. He says that he will report this to his superiors and revoke their decision. Sometime later, a conversation about the refugees takes place, and thanks to the fact that Yogi is able to communicate a little with them, they end up being accepted to live with them there. However, all of them have become Yogi's responsibility. So, with all his laziness, he asks his subordinates to get food and prepare a place for everyone while he takes care of all the bare shovel. Halfway there, Lieutenant Yanagita invites Yogi to talk a little alone. Yanagi believes that Yogi has cut off his communication on purpose to lead the refugees to their camp. All this in order to avoid being ordered to abandon the refugees. Yogi says that a magnetic field must have cut off their communication or something. So, Yanagita decides to have a serious conversation with Yogi. He says that the whole world is watching this portal that leads to another world. In this new world, there are resources that can completely change the world's economy. So, he asks Yogi if he really believes that it is worth becoming enemies of half the planet in order to maintain this access to another world. Yogi says that he only brought the refugees, but Yanagi says that he is the person closest to obtaining the information that Japan needs to act, since he was the first to create friendly connections with this world. Yanagi leaves, saying that soon Yogi will be given more freedom to act in this and the other world, and that he must be prepared for that. After this conversation, the next day, the people from the other world begin to introduce themselves. First, the wise Kato and his apprentice Lele. Aurori introduces herself soon after, and finally the elf introduces herself as Atuka, the daughter of the forest chief. After that, Yogi does his best to communicate with everyone, saying that they will build houses for each of them. He seems like a clown communicating, but fortunately everything works out, and the ground begins to be prepared for the construction of everyone's house. The old wizard is frightened by the work of the machines, so he decides to go and rest. Atuka stands paralyzed, wondering what her father would think of these iron golems, until out of nowhere two men ask the two girls to leave that place because it is dangerous there. They go to the place where a man was cooking, and their Lele learns the name of the radish, and while eating, she shows more and more interest in the Japanese language. Meanwhile, outside the portal, more and more politicians from all over the world were starting to act, taking more and more interest in the portal to another world which had opened in Japan. Fortunately, Yogi did not know this yet and was just enjoying his bath. At the same time, the girls from the other world were taking a bath together. They start talking about Yogi. The elf is happy to find out his name. In this case, she found out the name Itami, but that is his last name. Furthermore, Lele tells everyone that in the place where they are, there is a portal to another country called Japan, and that besides Japan, there are several other countries. On the other side of the screen, Princess Pina discovered that someone from Rayliza was receiving treatment at a certain location and went there only to find King Duran in a deplorable state. King Duran says that everyone fought bravely, but the real enemy is the Empire, which made them fight an unwinnable battle and abandon them. She asks for information about the enemies in Alnus, and the king says that she must see for herself to understand how powerful they are. She decides to check it out, but obviously without putting her life at risk. And back at the military camp, we see that a satellite has finally been placed in what everyone calls a special region, and so Yogi has a signal to check his hobby, which for him is more important than his work. While he gets excited about the internet and checks the new releases of the season, Mari and Shino hit him to get his attention. They say that Tuka has been acting very strange, asking for food and clothes for two people, which are clothes for her and for another person who doesn't exist. Yogi then wonders if that elf has an imaginary boyfriend. This thought shocks his two work partners, who simply ask him to check what is happening with Tuka. The next day we discover that the elf is just afraid of depending too much on these people, and in the future having to sell her own body to pay for everything she received. At that moment, Lele arrives and asks Rory and Tuka to follow. She shows the battlefield full of winged dragons. She says that the men from the other world are not interested in the dragon scales, and even said that they can keep whatever they want. Therefore, they do not need to worry about having to sell their bodies to them. The elf is shocked, but she works together with everyone to collect the scales. After that, Yogi decides to help them exchange the scales for money, so that he can better understand how the trade in the special region works. The elf is afraid to get in the car with everyone, but Mari calms her down, and Lele does the same. And if this anime were a standard isekai, the elf would already be in love with the man who saved her, and would have already tried to eat his banana. But in this anime, so far she seems to be quite human. At the same time that he leaves for a region called Italica, Princess Pinia is also heading there. As Yogi and his team head towards Italica, Kurata informs him that a large amount of smoke is rising from a nearby mountain, and thanks to his extensive battle experience, Yogi quickly realizes that the smoke is coming from the region around Italica. Lele suggests that the smoke may be from something large burning in the area, stating the obvious. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Yogi orders everyone to be alert, monitoring their surroundings and even looking at the sky. And while Yogi is talking to everyone, Aurori licks her lips, being very excited. She says that she can smell blood nearby. It turns out that Princess Pinia and her military unit are fighting for the good of the city of Italica. The clash of swords, blood and bodies can be seen everywhere, and after the princess's forces manage to take control of the castle, things begin to calm down. And then her assistant, looking confused, asks why they are dealing with so many bandits in Italica. Pinia, who is visibly frustrated, grits her teeth and admits that she doesn't know either. The princess gets angry and says that she was only informed that a group of armed invaders were attacking the territories. She thought it was the men in green, which led her to rush to Italica to defend this region. However, when she arrives, all she finds are her own troops, who have now turned against the Empire. She orders her attendant to tell everyone to prepare to deal with any further invasions that may come to Italica. She also orders them to dispose of the bodies of the dead bandits and make stronger barriers. She sends a message to the royal army, telling them that they will come to her aid in 3 days. With that said, the princess heads towards the castle's resting rooms, where the butler asks her if there is a way to avoid further fighting. The princess replies that if they stop fighting, they will lose everything. Their men will be killed and their women will be assaulted. Therefore, in order to avoid this, they must fight as hard as they can to survive. After saying this, the princess heads to her chambers to rest, asking the butler and the maid to warn her if anything important were to happen. She feels miserable as she lies down on her bed, unable to shake off her disappointment. She never imagined that her first battle would end in disaster. As a child, she always dreamed of becoming the greatest knight in the kingdom and trained with the best knights in the world. Her goal was to create her own order of knights with the help of her mentor, Gray. After 7 years of hard work, she finally created her own order of knights, but her father never allowed her to engage in real battles. Instead, her order of knights was only used for ceremonies, such as honor guards. A few hours later, she is awakened by her maid and a butler. They have urgent news to deliver. They say that a group of people have arrived at the castle gates, but they cannot tell if they are friends or enemies. The princess quickly gets up and runs to the gate. She sees a jeep and people getting out of it, and upon closer inspection, she realizes that it is not just any group of warriors, but among them are Lele, a true mage, a Rory the Reaper, and a rare elf girl. She is faced with two choices: open the gates to the strangers or turn against them. After thinking for a while, the princess decides to open the gate. As she does so, she accidentally knocks Yoji over. The elf scolds her for having a bird's brain and opening the gate without realizing that someone was standing too close to him. Soon, Yoji wakes up and asks his companions to be on standby, as he will contact them when necessary. He looks at the princess and asks her to explain the situation. Princess Pina explains that the fortress city of Italica is located at the intersection of the Thessaly and Appian highways, making it a major trading hub. Its important position allowed Italica to prosper for generations, always ruled by the imperial nobility. However, everything changed when the city's last ruler unexpectedly passed away, leaving behind 3 daughters who soon found themselves in a bitter struggle for control of the throne. The eldest and middle daughters, both married into powerful families, continued to fight their younger sister Amui for the right to rule. The power struggle between the sisters became more intense, and no one was able to establish a clear leadership. The situation became even worse when the empire sent military forces to the otherworld. Each noble family was forced to send their troops to aid in the battle, but tragically none of the commanders returned. With their forces depleted and no one to lead the city's defense, Italica's security quickly declined. Bandits and hostile forces took advantage of the city's weakened state, and defending its walls became increasingly difficult. Its people watched in fear as the struggle for control continued. Princess Pina opens the doors to a chamber, and when they enter the room, Wills and the others are shocked. They see her youngest daughter, Princess Mui, sitting on a throne. The youngest princess is only 11 years old, far too young to be the next ruler and take on the insane responsibility. Pina says that since Princess Mui is too young, she has been asked to take charge of the kingdom in her place. Later, Yogi tells Pina that he will help Italica and Princess Mui because the current situation is making things more difficult for them. They also need to establish a peaceful relationship in order to sell the dragon scales so that the girls can secure their livelihood. The princess allows Yogi and his team to take control of the south gate and help them. Soon, Yogi places his soldiers on the roof of the castle and carefully inspects the surroundings. He notices a group of enemy scouts standing behind the south gate. His comrade informs him that the enemy does not have enough men to surround the entire city either, and that the south gate is closed. The north side is against the sharp cliff, so they will probably organize their troops at one of the 3 gates. Yogi is a little worried because he only has 12 soldiers to guard an entire gate, and now they cannot retreat because they have already committed to helping the princess. Yogi quickly orders his troops to take up position, making sure they are carefully positioned. At midnight, the enemy launches a surprise attack on the eastern gates, and Yogi quickly realizes that the bandits did not attack the south gate, which is good for them and bad for Princess Pina. Meanwhile, the princess and her unit of knights are engaged in a fierce battle with another group of bandits at the east gate. As the night grows dark, arrows begin to rain down on the castle, causing panic among the defenders. The situation becomes more chaotic when they discover that the bandits are not alone, and that there is even a spirit carrier who has joined the attack, posing an even greater threat. A brutal battle ensues between the defenders and the bandits, with both sides suffering heavy losses. The princess, watching the bloodshed unfold before her eyes, is overcome with senseless fear. Her knights struggle to maintain control, and the castle's defenders are pushed to their limits. The sight of her fallen people fills the princess with a deep sense of helplessness and guilt. She desperately wishes she could call on Yoji and his team to help them, but a wave of guilt washes over her. After all, she sent them there, believing that every enemy attack would come from there. Meanwhile, the bandits slowly take control of Italica, wreaking havoc everywhere. They kill and injure the locals. The imperial army does its best to stop them, but they are outnumbered, making their work difficult. The soldiers fight bravely, but the sheer number of bandits begins to overwhelm them. The situation worsens when the commander of the imperial army is caught in the middle of the conflict. Despite his efforts, he is killed, leaving the soldiers and the people of Italica in shock. News of the commander's death spreads quickly, and without their leader, the defenders feel hopeless as the bandits grow stronger and advance towards the castle. During this chaos, the bandit leader steps forward and gives a speech to urge his men. He proudly declares that the chance for revenge after their defeat by the men in green has finally arrived. He reminds them of their brothers who died in that battle, and promises to make the imperial army pay for for it. The bandit leader's words galvanize his men, filling them with energy. He promises that none of the Imperial soldiers will be spared, and calls them traitors who deserve to die. His speech spurs the bandits to fight even harder, while the defenders of Italica struggle to protect the city. Soon, news arrives that Norman, the commander of the Imperial army, has died. This causes panic among the people around the princess, who urge her to seek help from the men in green. The situation becomes increasingly desperate as the battle continues, and of course the castle gates are soon vulnerable, leaving them open for the bandits to enter and kill everyone inside. The princess's advisor suggests that the only option is to call in the special forces and begin evacuating people immediately to ensure their safety. Time is running out, and a decision must be made quickly. On the other hand, Rory can no longer hold back, because when people die, her body fills with energy, and if she doesn't fight, she needs to find a way to put out the fire that burns inside her body. And since no one there wants to satisfy her, she runs towards the eastern gates. Upon seeing this, Yoji and his companions follow her, and along the way, Yoji orders the 401st reinforcement to stand by the eastern gates and await his orders. Soon, the Japanese forces' combat helicopters begin to head towards the eastern gates to take up their positions. Rory positions herself right in the middle of the battlefield, defeating any enemy that threatens to attack her. She doesn't stop killing the dishonest bandits and quickly begins to dominate the battlefield. Suddenly, under Yoji's orders, the helicopters begin to shoot the bandits with missiles and machine guns. They begin to slowly destroy the enemy bases, quickly disarming them and forcing them to run for their lives. The bandits are clearly no match for the helicopter gunships. Yoji and his team also arrive at the eastern gates and begin to fire bullets at the enemy, forcing them to run. Since they are no match against their weapons, and upon seeing that Yoji and his companions have arrived, Rory begins to fight again, killing the bandits like insects under her feet. Finally, she kills the commander of the bandit army, and they all get excited after the death of their leader. The commander of the combat helicopters asks Yoji to quickly evacuate the front gate, because they will completely clear this area, killing everyone. After doing so, the soldiers get out of the helicopter and begin their rescue missions, while the princess is amazed at the strange machine that can kill people in seconds. The bandits are exterminated, and the soldiers begin working to find the locals and restore the people's homes. The princess then declares that it was not the Imperial army that won, but the forces of the men in green, who together with the Reaper Rory managed to successfully save all of their lives. But deep down she fears that if the Japanese defense forces were their enemies, they, along with their companions and advisors, would have been taken prisoner, and the most important agricultural area, Italica, would have been taken by these forces. After everything is over, everyone gathers at the royal court of Italica, in front of Princess Mui. Yoji allows them to take control of the prisoners, but on the condition that they be treated with respect. Negotiations soon begin, and the defense forces demand that the princess simply pay them for her service. Furthermore, they do not want any Japanese to be attacked by people from the empire. The princess promises to do so, and then she asks if they will occupy the city of Italica for defending it. But they say no, and that they intend to leave immediately. However, before leaving for their camp, the girls from Yoji's team go out to sell dragon scales to a merchant. After a bit of bargaining, Lily gets 30,000 silver coins for 200 dragon scales. But for the remaining 1,000 silver coins, the merchant only gives her some information about recent events. After the deal is done, everyone returns to the military base. But suddenly, they stop the vehicle when they hear a scream. When they use their binoculars to look closely, they notice a grotto riding a horse. The strange girl has blonde hair and is dressed in a knight's outfit. She is being followed by other hot girls. And when Yoji looks closely, he can see the flags of the Imperial army. This clearly means that the girls are the Knights of the Order of the Kingdom, the ones that the princess had called as reinforcements. The blonde stops in front of the jeep and angrily asks if they are enemies from another kingdom. As Yoji leaves to try to explain, another female knight holds a sword to his neck, telling him to be quiet. When Yoji tries to speak again, the female knight hits him in the face, causing the other soldiers to take up positions to shoot the female knights. However, Yoji tells them not to shoot and to run away to avoid trouble. They all immediately turn their jeeps around and leave, while Yoji is left as a hostage with the female knights. The female knights beat Yoji badly before taking him to the princess, and when the princess sees him completely injured, she throws a glass of wine in the face of one of the female knights, calling them a bunch of Diordas who kidnapped her savior, Yoji. She sadly tells them that they violated the treaty that was signed between the Special Defense Forces and the city of Italica. This clearly means that the defense forces can call for war against Italica. On the other hand, Yoji's team and the others are desperately waiting at the border of Italica for Yoji to return. The general, who is the second in command, declares that they will wait until sunset, and if Yoji doesn't return, they will enter the castle to bring him back, even if it means using force. While they are talking, Yoji's closest aide tells the girls that Yoji is a ranger. Everyone is shocked to hear this. Yoji, who seems to be a manga obsessive, is actually a well-trained ranger who has undergone hellish training and has a mind and body of steel. After waiting for a while, they decide to enter the castle since there is no sign of Yoji. As they are about to advance, the elf uses a sleep spell, putting the guards into a deep sleep. She quickly climbs onto the roof of the castle and signals for the soldiers to enter the castle. Then, the soldiers quickly take their positions. Inside the castle, Yoji is bandaged and placed on a bed to sleep and recover. When he wakes up, he is a little surprised to find himself surrounded by girls who look like mythical creatures. One of them has cat ears, while the other looks like a rabbit. Suvan, the head maid, enters the room and assures Yoji that he will be well treated by all of them, as the princess has ordered her maids to take great care of him, doing whatever he wishes. She also informs him that the knights who treated him so badly on his way to Italica have been severely punished, and that everyone in those cities is grateful for the help he has given them, and even considers him their hero. The maid seriously comments that someone who saved the kingdom should not have been treated like that. Therefore, if he wants to destroy the city of Italica to get revenge, revenge, she and all the maids will support him. But she does not want the princess to be the target of attacks. Yoji quickly assures her that he will not do anything stupid like that. The maid smiles and tells him that until he recovers, these 4 beautiful maids will take care of him, doing everything he needs. Out of nowhere, the girl with cat ears tells the head maid and maid that some people are trying to break into Yoji's room. The head maid says that they could very well be Yoji's friends, and if they really are the men in green, she can allow them to pass. However, if they are other people, then they should devour them in the usual way. Yoji, quite interested in the maids, asks who they are. The old woman then replies that the rabbit warrior is called Mimina, the cat girl is called Persia, and the third is a jellyfish called Aria, while the last one is just a human girl called Mom. She warns that the jellyfish can drain people's energy with her hair, but she has been trained not to attack Yoji. Suddenly, Yoji's companions enter the room, ready to attack if anyone tries to stop them from catching their captain. But their jaws drop to the floor when they see that Yoji is being treated like a king, with monster girls serving him. Soon, the soldiers start to get along with the girls who take care of Yoji, as well as the head maid. The men are trying to flirt with the girls, while the head maid continues to cling to Hori for her blessings. And seeing the lively atmosphere around him, Yoji comments that since everyone here is friendly, they can stay in Italica for a while longer, not to mingle with monster girls, but for the sake of cultural exchange. The princess calls the Knights of the Order of the Roses and speaks to the blonde knight. She tells her to take responsibility for her rude treatment of Yoji, and suggests that she use her charm to win his forgiveness. The princess hopes that the knight's seductive body will be enough, and reluctantly the blonde knight agrees. She dresses in revealing clothes, looking like the way my grandmother usually goes to bed. She then goes to the door of Yoji's room, expecting to find him alone. But when she enters, she is shocked to see a lively gathering. The room is full of people talking and laughing, and Yoji is in the middle of it all, completely ignoring her. The blonde knight feels humiliated. She reminds herself that she is the second daughter of the respected lecture house. However, Yoji does not even look at her. This hurts her pride, and anger quickly takes over her. In a fit of rage, she rushes towards Yoji and slaps him hard across the face, leaving a large bruise on him. The commotion causes them to be taken to the princess, and when the princess sees the bruise on Yoji's face, she is shocked. She begins to worry, fearing that Yoji might retaliate by ordering his forces to attack them, jeopardizing their fragile peace. However, the soldiers tell the princess that they will be taking Yoji with them, and that she is free to deal with her knights on her own. They also tell her that Yoji needs to present a report to the National Senate. Therefore, he urgently needs to leave. When the princess hears about the Senate, a sense of dread takes over her. She is worried that Yoji will complain about his knight's inappropriate behavior, and that the Japanese Senate will end up demanding war against Italica. The princess quickly gets up from her throne and declares that she will go with Yoji to the Senate. The next morning, Yoji and his companions and Princess Pinia travel to the Senate, and as they approach the men in Green's military base, the princess notices soldiers training with their weapons. Curious, she asks Lele if these soldiers are mages using magic. However, Lele shakes her head and explains that the soldiers are not mages, but rather use weapons called pistols and rifles. She says that their weaponry consists of cylindrical tools that create explosions using lead bullets. These weapons, combined with their training, make the soldiers extremely effective in battle. Lele adds that their unique way of fighting was the reason they defeated the Imperial forces. As the princess looks outside, her curiosity turns to fear. She sees tanks, helicopters, and armed soldiers, which seem strange and terrifying to her. Impressed, she compares these machines and weapons to otherworldly monsters, finding it hard to believe that humans could create such things. After arriving at the men in Green's military base, the princess is taken to Lieutenant General Hazama, who is in charge of all activities in the special region. Lele also accompanies her as a translator and mediator. When the general asks why a high-ranking princess from the Imperial region has come to visit them, she apologizes, saying that her forces behaved inappropriately towards Yoji. That is why she came to apologize. The general responds that he has read the reports, and he understands that there was simply a misunderstanding. The princess nods in agreement and says that she is sorry about that. The general says that the princess was kind enough to act as a mediator and create a treaty between the Empire and the defense forces. He says that if the treaty is causing problems, they can simply rethink the terms and come to a new agreement. But the princess quickly responds that the current terms of the treaty are fine. The general's aide tells the princess that Yoji asked them to consider the bruises as part of their duty in the special region, and they in no way blame the princess or her knights. Later that night, Yoji sits in his cabin, grumbling about how his duties in the special region prevent him from attending any anime events. He leans back in his chair, staring at the ceiling and wishing for a break from his busy life. A knock on the door startles him. When he opens the door, he finds Lele standing there, looking completely exhausted. Her eyes are droopy, and she explains that she has been translating all day. She asks if he can take her back to her camp. Yoji looks at his watch and frowns, saying that it is already too late. Then, he carefully picks her up and places her on his bed, tucking her in so that she can rest comfortably, and sits down, intending to keep an eye on her for a while. However, the events of the day have left him exhausted, and it is not long before he falls asleep, resting his head on the edge of the bed. The next day, the elf girl Rory and Lele prepare to cross the gates and head to Japan, as the Japanese authorities wish to interrogate some people from the other world. To everyone's surprise, the princess also joins them, along with the blonde knight, saying that they will also accompany them in secret. Soon, the group passes through the gates to reach Japan, and everyone is shocked by the structures around them. The princess realizes that the Empire has started a war against a civilization that is capable of building structures that touch the sky. She observes everything and comes to the conclusion that winning any war against the people of the other world is completely impossible. While Yoji is doing the paperwork, a curly-haired man introduces himself as Kamikado, a representative of the intelligence headquarters, and his mission is to get them to safety. Yoji looks at him suspiciously and asks if he is from public security. The strange man laughs laughs and in response says that someone as smart as Yoji can easily figure out anyone's identity. Kamakado takes out his notebook and starts to comment on everything about Yoji and his background. He says that he researched Yoji and found out that he had the second lowest grades in his class during officer training and barely managed to avoid being last, only to avoid being last because someone else got injured. He graduated but was barely graded as a passer, and his superior was furious and put him in the ranger officer school, which he somehow completed. For some reason, Yoji was transferred to Narikino after that, and his poor personal evaluations kept him as a second lieutenant. But after the Ginza incident, he was promoted to first lieutenant. But what is most fascinating is that a lazy ant like Yoji, with a horrible reputation in the service, ended up becoming an S-ranker, being one of the few special soldiers who can complete any mission. Yoji looks at him and replies that if an ant colony gets rid of the laziest one, then others will end up becoming the lazy ones in the group. Therefore, lazy people are needed. And Yoji says that the fact that he became an S-rank was pure luck. Soon, everyone gets on a bus that takes them around the city, leaving all the girls fascinated by the markets and the Christmas trees. They stop at a clothing store to buy a bunch of clothes for the guests. All this so that they can dress up in formal attire. After all, they will soon be appearing on television. After that, they quickly go to lunch. And after some time, they arrive at the Senate building, where the princess is introduced to the Prime Minister's assistant and also to the Minister of Foreign Affairs. They all go to their respective seats, and the assistant informs them about the process, saying that they will hold a conference where they will discuss and decide on several matters of great importance. News of the presence of people from the other world spreads throughout Japan, and everyone prepares for the interview that will take place. After all, it has only been 4 months since Japan was invaded by the forces of the other world. The question and answer session will be held today, and in addition to the Defense Force personnel, the girls from the other world will also answer some questions. In the evening, a press conference is held, and as soon as Yoji enters with the refugees, the cameras flash with excitement, and soon a woman steps up to the podium to accuse the Japanese forces of not having been quick enough in saving the lives of the people who were killed by the dragon. In response to her, Yoji calmly says that the dragon was too strong and powerful. Furthermore, they did not have enough firepower, and their ammunition ricocheted off the dragon's body. He reminds the woman that they were in another world, and that the creatures there are completely different from those here. And unfortunately, some people ended up dying. They really wish they had a stronger weapon, like a charged particle beam, a proton cannon, or a gravity bomb. But unfortunately, they were not given any of these to go to the other world, and the proof of the dragon's strength lies in the scales collected from the special region. After a brief analysis, it was discovered that these scales are as strong as tungsten. This stands out very well against high-temperature flames. Therefore, demanding 0 casualties when fighting a monster like this is unreasonable. The woman then asks Lele if she faced any inconveniences living in the refugee camps set up by the forces in the special region. Lele calmly replies that all her clothing, food, shelter, work, and spiritual needs are met in the camp. The woman then turns to the elf girl and asks if her ears are real, and the elf girl replies that they are. And as soon as she reveals her ears, the crowd goes wild. Upon seeing a real elf girl, the shocked woman asks if the defense force encountered any problems in dealing with the dragon's attack. The elf girl replies that she is not sure about that because she was unconscious at the time. Next is Rory, and the first question she is asked is her name. After that, she is asked to describe life in the refugee camps, and Rory replies that everything is very simple. When she wakes up, she prays, and at night she sleeps peacefully. She spends her time eating, killing, and making offerings to the god of war. The woman then says that according to reports, 1/3 of the refugees were killed in the dragon attack, while the defense forces suffered no minor injuries. Therefore, the people who should have defended them with their lives put their own safety first, and in the end, the lives of the civilians were put in danger. After asking this question, the woman smiles, thinking that she has finally revealed the true colors of the defense forces. But suddenly, Rory yells, calling the woman an idiot. Rory goes on to tell how the defense forces fought the dragon well, keeping the refugees safe. Furthermore, she asks what is wrong with the soldiers trying to save their lives, because if they die needlessly, who will protect the common people who do nothing but sit comfortably and complain? She adds that the men in green fought the fire dragon and came back alive. Therefore, the first thing everyone should do is praise them. She also says that Yoshi's team managed to save 3/4 of the refugees. She then tells the woman who is asking questions that she doesn't understand how the battle happened. She doesn't know what it's like to put your life in danger for other people, and she has also never seen the strength and power of a red dragon. So if the woman thinks that the men in green weren't good enough, she must be stupid and dumb. The reporter is visibly irritated by the childlike Aurori humiliating her in front of everyone. She then calls her a rude brat who doesn't know how to talk to her elders. She mocks her lack of values and tries to educate her about Japanese norms and behaviors. And when Aurori sees the woman talking like that, she prepares to teach her a lesson. But to avoid deaths, Yoji quickly intervenes and tries to change the subject. He gets angry and informs everyone that Aurori may look very young for her age, but she is the oldest among all the people in the room. The woman stands up again and asks how old she is, to which Aurori replies that she is 961 years old and that the elf girl is 165. Lele then opens her mouth and explains that she is a 15-year-old human. While Tuka is an elf who comes from a rare species of fairy that lives for about 1,000 years, Aurori is a demigoddess who has stopped aging. Therefore, the concept of lifespan does not apply to her. Later, the princess is invited to welcome back the prisoners who were taken by the Japanese government after that incident where the empire invaded Japan. Now, during the return of the event, Yoji takes the refugees to the subway, and they are clearly afraid of being sent to the depths of hell. Soon, they meet up with Kamakado, who is taking them to Tokyo, where they will change trains. They are doing this to escape spies from other countries who want to have contact with the people of the other world. When they arrive in Tokyo, they are informed that the subway is no longer working working due to an accident. Kamikato tells Yoji that it is suspicious as there may be some people who want to attack them. Soon, an informant tells them to go to Akihabara, and Yoji takes him to his ex-wife's house with the aim of keeping them safe. Everyone is shocked to see that Yoji has an ex-wife, not believing that there is a woman crazy enough to marry a psychopath like Yoji. Yoji tells his wife everything and also says that they are at risk of being attacked. Then, she responds that she does not want to put herself in danger, and everyone agrees with her. Yoji reveals that he was forced to leave the tired-looking man out of his plans because he seems too suspicious. After all, whenever he shows up, the enemies seem to figure out his position. At night, while everyone is asleep, Yoji's ex-wife is busy making a manga that she has to hand in the next day. One of the soldiers asks Risa about her marriage to Yoji, and she responds by saying that Yoji is just her friend now. She says that they didn't break up because they were fighting, but because they were a little different from the average couple. The next day, they all decide to go to places with a lot of people so as not to be in danger. So, the group splits into two. Yoji and Risa will stay with the first group to go shopping in Shibuya, while the other soldier is taking the princess and the knight to the library so they can learn more about Japanese literature. In fact, they are only interested in yaoi manga. Soon, they are in the middle of Shibuya helping Rory choose a dress for her. On the other hand, the princess is very shocked to see a building full of books. And while everyone is busy with the tourist attractions of Japan, Yoji goes to meet his longtime mentor, the former Japanese Minister of Defense. Finally, everyone gathers in the subway to go to the hot springs together. After traveling for a long time, Yoji and his group finally arrive at the hot springs. Everyone was excited to relax and enjoy the baths. However, their time of peace didn't last long, and Rory felt that someone was watching them. When she looked out the window, her sharp eyes saw a man standing 450 meters away from the bathhouse. The man was one of the soldiers who were keeping an eye on them. The soldier quickly reported it to his superiors, but they only said that it was impossible for someone to have seen him from 450 meters away. Around the hot springs, several different organizations began to advance. Their goal was to capture the girls from the other world. The Japanese forces were obviously trying to defend them, and the fact that so many people were dying was making it very difficult for Rory to rest. So, while everyone else slept, Rory stayed awake. Later that night, the Japanese soldiers received new orders. They were basically ordered to let the enemies pass. This only happened due to a political agreement between a Japanese politician and the leader of a foreign country that threatened him. The agreement seemed to involve protecting the guests of the special region, literally canceling any kind of protection they were supposed to have. At the same time, inside the bathhouse, Rory seemed to be in a difficult situation as she had two options. Either she advances and defeats the enemies, or she finds a way to deal with the heavy fire she is feeling. In the end, she attacks Yoji, and he tries to resist her charms, saying that he can't do that to a girl who looks like a child. Even though he says this, he was about to attack, but at that moment he is saved by a phone call. He quickly pushes Rory away and jumps towards the phone to escape. When Rory asks what that device is, he answers by saying that it is called a cell phone and that it is used to make important calls. Rory becomes sullen and says that she hates cell phones. Yoji looks at the message he received and realizes that it came from the Minister of Defense. Outside the inn, the foreign soldiers are facing each other, and since they all have the same goal, they begin to fight. However, Rory jumps and lands in front of the two opposing forces. She moves quickly, dodging bullets and parrying everything she would hit. She runs at full speed while the soldiers fire wildly at her. However, she is too fast. Rory's quick movements and unpredictable actions leave both sides struggling to keep up. She takes full advantage of the chaos, turning the situation against them. One of the wounded soldiers manages to talk to his superiors. He explains that the Japanese soldiers retreated, but they ended up encountering foreign soldiers. Not only that, but he is currently being attacked by a little girl with a giant axe. Meanwhile, inside the inn, Yoji lies on the floor. He yells at everyone to keep their heads down as bullets shatter the glass windows. Yoji tries to figure out what's going on, and amidst the chaos, he hears Rory's wild laughter. As she continues to eliminate soldier after soldier, Rory's relentless attacks make it clear that the situation is far from under control. And as everyone leaves the inn, Risa is frightened after seeing a lot of blood and bodies everywhere. She asks what's going on, and Yoji replies that the public security will arrive soon. But they can't just wait here. He orders his companions to gather all the weapons they have and gather everyone's belongings. Tomita asks the princess and the knight Laura to change their clothes and get ready to leave. Yoji approaches the injured Rory, concerned that she has been shot, but she reassures him, saying that his body regenerates automatically. She says that demigods do not die, so he can rest assured. At midnight, everyone walks out of the hot springs area, and they are happy that no one was seriously injured and that the defense minister managed to get them that in to stay. Otherwise, they would have become victims of the foreign forces. Soon, they see a vehicle with a seemingly foreign driver. Tomita quickly points his gun at his head and asks him to get out of the vehicle. They take the driver out of the jeep, and Lele puts him to sleep with her magic. After taking the jeep, they leave, and Yoji says that they can't go to the Jin's region right now because the road there must be surrounded by enemies. Everyone is in a panic at the moment, and Tomita asks Yoji why the hell they are running and hiding like rats. Yoji doesn't say anything. Then, Ashino, frustrated, points her gun at Yoji and asks him to open his mouth right now. She asks him to stop hiding information or she will kill him, but Yoji says that he doesn't know anything. The princess, used to dealing with this kind of thing, asks if the Japanese government has any enemies. They say that currently they don't. So, the princess asks if there are people who don't want her to make a peace agreement, which is a good suggestion, but no one knows what's really going on. After a while, they reach a safe place and the girls go out to get some drinks for themselves. Meanwhile, Risa decides to tease Yoji. She asks if he's in love with the girls, and he says maybe. Then, she says that he likes the elf for her body, the gothic loli for her personality, and that the mage he wants to protect, and Yoji agrees with all of her statements. After everyone returns to the vehicle, Risa uses her laptop to tell all the otakus that Rory, Tuka, and Lele are going to visit the Ginza Memorial, and that after that they will return to the special region. She excitedly tells Yoji that people loved their answers on television and that many people ended up becoming fans of them. So, she believes that if enough people gather around the girls, it will be very difficult for these agents to attack them in broad daylight. With everything ready, the next day, at 10 a.m., the people of Japan are shocked to hear the sudden news of their Prime Minister's resignation and his hospitalization. In the distance, the foreign agents under Agent Graham's command are in their positions, ready to kidnap the girls from the other world. Agents from other countries can also be seen nearby, which makes everyone's mission even more difficult since they have already lost most of their team in the hot springs. And now that the Prime Minister has resigned, they no longer have that political card. Graham tells his team that as soon as the people from the special region show up, they will panic the crowd, cut off their TV connections and kidnap them. Now we see Yoji arriving at the area where the girls intend to leave. He is surprised to see so many people near the gate. They intended to proceed cautiously, but Rory jumps out of the vehicle, and everyone who sees her applauds her as if they were seeing a character from a manga in real life. Yoji realizes that if they don't act now, the Prime Minister's resignation and Risa's efforts will be in vain. So he jumps out of the vehicle and asks Risa to abandon the vehicle anywhere, but she screams saying that she doesn't know how to drive. After that, he orders his two comrades, Tomita and Shino, to protect his 5 guests from the special region, and if anyone tries to hurt them, they are allowed to shoot. The crowd opens the way for the guests, while the news channels show the 5 girls from the other world accompanied by their security agents. Meanwhile, on the other hand, Graham is worried because he can't accomplish his mission with so many people surrounding the guests. Suddenly, the Kamikato, the head of public security, pays them a visit. He tells Graham that unfortunately they will not be able to act since Graham has completely lost his protection. Frustrated, Graham immediately makes a call to tell his superiors that he and his agents are in danger. But unfortunately, by this time he has already been abandoned. Now, the girls from the other world pray for the well-being of the dead at the memorial, and as they leave, all the Japanese people start saying goodbye and applauding them. Soon, they reach the special region. Today, I am greeted by my fellow soldiers, and everyone is very happy after a day full of fun. In the evening, the princess tells the blonde knight that she will make sure to put an end to the war, because if the empire chooses to crowd, they will surely lose. She writes a letter to the emperor about her decision, and decides to return to the capital the next day. And after 5 months since the gate was opened, we see that now different cultures and goods have begun to be exchanged, all of this located right near the gate to the other world. Slowly, the refugee area has turned into a bustling city. Meanwhile, Princess Pinia, who had seen Japan with her own eyes, is ready to hold the famous peace negotiations, taking a responsible Japanese with her. The princess tells him that the survival of the empire depends on making peace with Japan. Soon, a party is called at the residence of the Lord of Sisera. The princess tells the Japanese man who accompanies her that the ambassador of the Martis clan is one of the leaders of the most important families in the empire, and that he has great influence in the Senate, and that he is one of the people who are willing to negotiate a possible peace. After the massacre of the empire in the war, the empire is still rebuilding its army, but it will be up to the Senate to choose between war and peace. The faction in the Senate which wants peace is ready to limit the power of the emperor, who was the one who started this dangerous conflict. After dinner, the princess takes the ambassador to meet Lord Cicero, one of the most influential leaders in her country. She introduces the ambassador as a mysterious man from a distant nation. The lord, intrigued by this rare encounter, asks the ambassador to tell him more about who he is. The ambassador speaks proudly, explaining that Japan is a beautiful country blessed with 4 distinct seasons, lush forests, and pure, clean water. And to further express his goodwill, the Japanese ambassador presents a collection of gifts from Japan, offering them as a symbol of friendship and respect. Lord Cicero examines the gifts and is shocked by their quality, which makes the lord regret having underestimated Japan. He apologizes for not treating it with more respect. Curious about this distant land, Lord Cicero asks where Japan is located. The ambassador then explains that Japan is beyond the gate to the other world. However, he also reveals a harsh truth. Japan is currently at war with the empire, which is the largest government in the world. This revelation shocks the lord. He immediately becomes concerned and asks why Princess Pinia would secretly ally herself with her enemy. Such exposed actions could lead to severe punishment, even death. Sensing the lord's concern, the ambassador calmly places a piece of paper on the table. The document contains important information, revealing that Lord Cicero's nephew is a prisoner in Japan. The ambassador explains that Princess Pinia has agreed to act as a mediator between the two countries. Her goal is to negotiate a fair exchange of prisoners to ease tensions and save lives. However, this delicate plan requires the support of important allies, including Lord Cicero himself. This is not only to ensure the safety of those involved, but also to promote understanding between the warring nations. In exchange for his support, the ambassador assures Lord Cicero that his nephew will be treated with care and that they will do everything possible to reunite them. After some thought, Lord Cicero finally agrees to help the princess, as his nephew's life is too important to ignore, and he also wants to reinforce this peace agreement by creating a great alliance with Japan. Meanwhile, Yoji and his assistant are walking through the newly created town. Yoji is happy that the camps have become such a lively place. His assistant tells him that the sudden increase in the size of the town means that they are short of people, and the only reason this place is open is because Princess Mui lends her maids. Unfortunately, this is a bad influence, because some of the maids work in bars and the younger soldiers are becoming regulars at the bars. While they are talking, they come across Rory, who has just fended off a creepy weirdo who was causing trouble. They all go to a nearby bar together and get some drinks, until out of nowhere they see an elf girl looking for someone. She waves to them and goes off to find the person she is looking for. The doctor on Yoji's team tells them that the elf girl always goes out to look for her dead father, and that they need to stop her or she might end up getting hurt. And when Rory asks asks if they really should force the girl to accept reality. The doctor responds that they need to do this because she cannot continue living her life without accepting reality. However, Yoji tells them to let the elf girl do whatever she wants because if they tell her about her father's death, she might lose her mind. Besides, they will soon be removed from the special program and there will be no one to take care of her. Hearing this, the doctor becomes a little sad. She leaves the bar and heads to the camp while Rory and Yoji are left alone. At this point, Rory tells her a little about her adventures and advises him to live his life the best way he can. Suddenly, a dark elf named Yao enters the bar and calls everyone out for allowing a child to drink alcohol. She believes Rory to be a child and continues to speak to everyone rudely. Rory asks her what she is doing here, to which the elf replies that she came to represent the dark elves and that she is looking for the people in green to have a conversation with them. Then she scolds Yoji for getting a child drunk. She accuses him of being a pervert. Rory plays along and hides behind the elf, saying that Yoji really forced her to drink. Seeing the elf furious and ready to attack him, Yoji runs for his life. All this without the elf noticing. After that, the elf returns to the bar and asks people about the men in green that she is looking for. The people in the bar soon understand the reason behind Rory's act. She wanted to save Yoji from further trouble, and the dark elf has no idea that the person she was looking for was actually Yoji, the man she had just scared. To make matters worse, no one dares to tell her because everyone is afraid of Rory. The elf shows the people a gigantic diamond, this stone being a real diamantine. She says that this will be the reward for the person who helps her find the people in green. All the people in the bar gather around her to see the big diamond, and of course everyone starts fighting over who will take the elf to the green people. The elf looks at the fight and calmly tells them that they are not capable enough to do the task and that she needs someone who can help her kill a dragon. Upon hearing about the legendary fire dragon, the people slowly leave the bar and apologize, saying that they do not even want to look at this dragon. However, they assure the elf that perhaps the men in green really can accept her offer and kill the dragon. After that, the dark elf leaves the bar and observing the surroundings, she can hear the singing of the wind spirits, she feels the clean water and the pure air. The vegetation around her is also lush and with nowhere to sleep, she finds a place in the middle of the woods and spends the night there. She keeps telling herself that she will soon find someone who will kill the dragon. The next morning, the elf wakes up to the sound of fighter jets from the Japanese defense forces. She watches the flying vehicles and realizes that these are the people she is looking for and is relieved to believe that her clan will really be saved. It turns out that a few months ago, to be more precise, a year ago, that legendary fire dragon attacked the elf's village and with its fiery breath, it burned the people and their homes, killing and injuring many people. The dragon turned their land completely sterile and killed about 220 elves. The remaining people of the clan called a meeting to find a solution to the fire dragon problem. In the end, they placed their hopes in the elf named Yao. They informed him that recently some men in green managed to pull him out of the dragon's arms and even managed to drive him away, saving the lives of several people. So, in order to get the help of the men in green, she was given the greatest treasure of her clan, which in this case is that gigantic crystal. In the present, she follows the path of a helicopter and runs towards the camp. She meets two guards at the entrance of the camp and tells them all about her village and the dragon, but the guards don't seem to understand her language, which leaves her a little disappointed. But then, her mind turns to Yulj. She remembers that when she met him at the bar, he seemed to understand her language. She then tries to find people who can find that man in green, but all she finds are bandits and miscreants, who she easily defeats. Soon, she finds a store where soldiers from the defense forces are visiting, and the saleswoman of that store somehow manages to talk to them. She runs to the saleswoman and asks if she can help her communicate with the soldiers. The girl then shows her a red book, which serves as a guide to communicate with the men in green. The girl says that everyone who works in the city gets one of these for free. Io begs the girl to let her keep this very important item, but she cannot accept his request because she could be fired for doing so. Hearing the commotion, two soldiers enter, and when Io comes in, they realize that she is the elf from the reports. It turns out that recently some men told the men in green that they were robbed by a dark elf. So the men in green ask this elf to go with them, and unfortunately not even the translator from Japan can communicate with this elf. So the soldiers are forced to call Lele. Lele enters the room and sits in front of the elf and asks her to tell her what she wants. The elf begs her to help pass her message to the soldiers. She wants to save her clan from the fire dragon, and to do so she needs the help of the men in green. She explains that she did not rob anyone and that she was only defending herself. After that, she is taken to the general, who tells her that he cannot help her because her forest is beyond the empire's territory, and since it is completely unexplored territory, they cannot invade that area without permission. Going in there would mean a declaration of war, and so she should give up. The elf tries to say that they don't need an entire army, but just a few men who can defeat the dragon. However, the general says that he does not intend to send his men to die, and that everything in Japan is done with great order and progress. After receiving this bad news, the elf becomes very sad, and as she is taken outside in a vehicle, the driver looks at the sad elf, and he says that Yoji could help her, as he is a person who can work hard to save someone he cares about. After that, Lele takes Yao to a tea shop, which serves an amazing anti-depression tea. The elf drinks it and starts crying a lot, saying that she cannot go back without the help of the soldiers, as her clan expects her to return with the green people. However, all she can do is return empty-handed. Next to her, some soldiers are sitting, and upon seeing her crying, they try to find a solution to help her and her entire clan. However, they are just extras and can do nothing. After that, Lele takes the dark elf to the blonde-haired elf. All this so that the dark elf can get a dormitory to sleep in. Meanwhile, Yoji finds the princess deep in a forest where they sit down to talk. The princess tells him everything that has happened since she returned from Japan. She tells Yoji about the challenges and changes in the kingdom, and how things have developed since her departure. The princess then picks up a romance manga, which has come straight from Japan, and during the conversation, Yoji learns that the royal palace is being greatly influenced by Japanese culture, and the knights who work at the palace have also begun to enjoy Japanese food. They spend their time enjoying delicacies of sweets, desserts, and tea, making the palace feel more like Japan than a medieval place. Yoji learns all of this calmly, and is fascinated by how much Japanese culture has affected the kingdom. The princess smiles as she talks about how she has learned to appreciate these new customs, but she still has her responsibilities. She is focused on bringing peace between the empire and Japan, in the hope that one day the two nations will unite in harmony. And with a final, warm farewell, she tells Yoji that her work is far from over. After that, Yoji leaves the forest and gets into a carriage. There, the doctor he is traveling with shares some great news. It turns out that the children from that original village had lost their parents and they had helped them. Well, those children had learned the Japanese language to the point where they could thank them for their help. Yoji is very happy to hear this, because the bond between Japan and the new kingdom continues to grow, and this fills him with pride. He believes that peace can be achieved, and he is hopeful that his efforts will make a difference. And in his heart, he is determined to bring that peace. The journey continues, and Yoji remains focused on his greatest goal, finding girls with animal traits.